What's going on, guys? Chris Jones, owner-operator here at Speed of Sound Audio Experts in Somersworth, New Hampshire. We're going to show you the right way to install a remote starter. We are working on a 2016 Honda HR-V. We're putting a remote starter in this vehicle. This is a push-to-start vehicle, so it's a complex electrical system in this vehicle, and we don't want to cut a bunch of wires up and stuff. So what we're going to do, we have a special kit we install in this vehicle. This is the computer. This is actually behind the gauge cluster. So I've taken the gauge cluster out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug these two plugs behind the gauge cluster here at the computer. And we have these matching plugs coming from our remote starter that will plug in where those two plugs are. And then we're able to plug in the plugs from the remote starter back into those two plugs. So this is called a T-harness. So this allows us to do the remote starter installation without cutting or splicing any of the vehicle's wiring. So now we can tuck this away, and then we'll actually end up running this down. And then here's our remote starter. We're going to keep it here right now for programming because we have to program the remote starter. But after that, we're going to end up running this down, and we'll tie the remote starter up down below the dashboard. That's just so if we ever have to service the remote starter, do any programming or remote changes or anything like that, we can access the remote starter without pulling the gauge cluster back out. But this is plug and play, so we're not cutting or splicing any wires up here. This thing could be taken right back out and plugged back into factory, and it would go right back to as it was before we did the remote starter installation. So this is why you want your remote starter done here, because we do the remote starters the right way.